The twin suns of Virelia cast their dying light across endless dunes of rust-colored sand, painting the desert in shades of amber and bronze. Dr. Lorne Kai wiped sweat from his brow as he knelt beside the excavation site, his weathered hands carefully brushing away millennia of accumulated dust from carved stone that defied explanation. "This doesn't match any known Virelian architecture," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the desert wind. Lorne had spent 20 years studying alien civilizations across the galaxy, but the geometric patterns emerging from the sand challenged everything he thought he knew about this world's history. "Lorne, you need to see this immediately," called Maya Sterling from deeper in the dig site. The expedition's historian rarely showed excitement, but her voice carried an urgency that made Lorne's pulse quicken. He'd learned to trust Maya's scholarly instincts during their 3 years working together. Lorne made his way down the carefully constructed ramps into the excavation pit, where portable fusion lights illuminated their discovery. Jackson Rivers, their tech specialist, stood mesmerized beside a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with its own ethereal inner light. "The energy readings are beyond anything in our databases," Jackson reported, his scanner's rapid beeping filling the chamber. "This thing has been generating power for thousands of years, maybe longer. The technology is completely alien to our understanding." The structure resembled a sarcophagus but crafted from materials that seemed to shift between transparency and opacity, like living crystal. Within its depths, Lorne could discern the silhouette of a humanoid figure. Unmistakably, female, tall and regal even in repose. "These inscriptions predate any known Virelian civilization by millennia," Maya said, her fingers tracing symbols carved around the tomb's base. "But there are references in the oldest surviving texts, stories of the Morning Empress, a legendary ruler from before the age of interstellar travel." Lorne approached the crystalline tomb, his archaeological instincts overriding caution. The figure inside possessed an otherworldly beauty, with aristocratic features that spoke of nobility and ancient power. Her skin held in luminescent pallor, and she was wrapped in what appeared to be crystalline fibers that glowed with dormant energy. "Local legend claims she ruled in an age of wonders," Lorne whispered, remembering tales shared by Virelian traders. "Said to guard secrets that could reshape reality itself, sealed away until the time of greatest need." As Lorne leaned closer to examine intricate patterns on the tomb's surface, his hand inadvertently brushed against a smooth panel near the figure's head. The moment his skin made contact, the entire structure erupted in brilliant light. The team stumbled backward, shielding their eyes as cascading energy flowed through the crystalline walls. Deep within the tomb, mechanisms that had waited 10,000 years began to hum with renewed purpose. "Lorne, get away from that thing," Jackson shouted. But Lorne found himself transfixed, watching as the figure inside began to stir with impossible grace. Slowly, majestically, eyes like captured starlight opened within the crystal chamber. They were ancient eyes, filled with wisdom and profound sorrow, that spoke of eons spent in solitary vigil. When their gazes met through the transparent barrier, Lorne felt the very air around them shift with awakening power. The tomb's surface began dissolving, crystal fibers retracting like living tissue, responding to some internal command. The woman within drew her first breath in 10 millennia, her chest rising and falling as systems throughout the structure synchronized with her returning life force. "Welcome, child of Earth," she spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated beyond human hearing. "I am she whom your people call the Morning Empress. The blood of humanity flows in your veins. Only this could break the seals that bound me to eternal sleep." Maya gasped as translation protocols in her equipment struggled with the archaic language. "Lorne, the tomb's technology. It was specifically designed to respond to human DNA. She's been waiting for us." The Empress rose gracefully from her crystalline bed, her movements fluid despite her long slumber. As she stepped free of the tomb, Lorne realized with growing dread and wonder that he had just awakened something far more significant than an ancient ruler. He had awakened humanity's destiny among the stars and possibly its greatest threat. The Morning Empress stood before them in the excavation chamber, her presence filling the space with an otherworldly majesty that made the portable lights seem dim by comparison. Her crystalline wrappings had dissolved completely, revealing flowing robes that seemed woven from starlight itself. Despite her ethereal beauty, Lorne could see the weight of ages in her luminous eyes. "You must understand," she began, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in their bones. "I was not placed in stasis by choice. My name is Seraphine Valdris, last ruler of the ethereal dynasty that once spanned 1,000 worlds." Maya's recording equipment struggled to capture the alien frequencies in the Empress's speech. "How long ago did your civilization fall?" she asked, her historian's curiosity overcoming her awe. 10 millennia by your reckoning," Seraphine replied, moving with fluid grace to examine their equipment. "We were betrayed from within. A faction known as the Shadow Collective sought to claim our greatest creation for themselves. The Nexus Core, a device capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of reality itself." Jackson's scanner detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the chamber. "The power readings are spiking, something's responding to her presence." Seraphine turned toward Lorne, and he felt an inexplicable pull toward her, as if their fates had been intertwined across the centuries. "The core was hidden, and I was sealed away as its guardian. Only one touched by the genetic markers of Earth could awaken me, for your people were prophesied to be the bridge between order and chaos." "Why us?" Lorne asked, stepping closer despite his team's concerned glances. "What makes humanity special?" "Your species possesses something unique," Seraphine said, reaching out to touch his cheek with fingers that felt like cool silk. "The ability to adapt, to find hope in the darkest circumstances. Qualities my people lost before our fall." The intimate gesture sent electricity through Lorne's body, and he saw something shift in the Empress's ancient eyes, a recognition of shared loneliness of kindred spirits who had dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge and history. "Lorne," Maya interrupted urgently, studying her long-range sensors. "We're detecting multiple spacecraft entering Varelia's system. They're not human designs." Seraphine's expression hardened, starlight eyes blazing with sudden fury. "They have found me. The Shadow Collective endures, and they seek to claim what they could not steal before." "Who are they exactly?" Jackson demanded, his weapon systems automatically activating. "Those who would use the Nexus Core to remake the galaxy in their image," Seraphine replied, her power causing the crystalline walls to resonate with harmonic frequencies. "They have waited and watched, knowing that eventually someone would awaken me." Lorne felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps hours, perhaps less." Seraphine moved closer to him, and he caught the subtle scent of exotic flowers that had bloomed under alien suns. "Lorne Kai of Earth, I sense in you a strength that transcends the physical, a dedication to truth that mirrors my own burden." Their eyes met, and in that moment, something profound passed between them. Here was a woman who had carried the weight of cosmic responsibility for 10,000 years, just as he had devoted his life to uncovering and preserving the mysteries of lost civilizations. "Tell me what you need," he said quietly, his hand finding hers. "I need time to remember who I was before the long sleep," she whispered, her fingers intertwining with his. "And I need someone who understands that some burdens are too heavy to bear alone." Maya cleared her throat diplomatically. "The approaching ships will reach orbit within 6 hours. We should prepare defensive positions." But Lorne barely heard her. He was lost in Seraphine's eyes, seeing not just an ancient empress but a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect others. Someone who, like him, had chosen duty over personal happiness for far too long. "You won't face this alone," he promised, his voice thick with emotion he didn't fully understand. Seraphine smiled, the first genuine expression of joy that had crossed her features in millennia. The makeshift command center buzzed with activity as Maya coordinated their limited defenses while Jackson worked frantically to interface their human technology with the awakening Varelian systems. But Lorne found himself drawn away from the preparations, following Seraphine as she explored the deeper chambers of her ancient tomb. "These were my private quarters," she said softly, running her fingers along walls that glowed at her touch. I would retreat here when the weight of ruling became too much to bear. The chamber was beautiful in its alien simplicity, curved walls that seemed grown rather than built, with surfaces that shifted between transparency and opacity based on some unknown mechanism. Crystalline formations grew from the floor like frozen music, creating an atmosphere of serene melancholy. You gave up everything, Lorne observed, watching her with growing admiration. Your life, your freedom, your very existence, all to protect something that might be used for evil. Seraphine turned to face him, and he saw vulnerability beneath her regal composure. I told myself it was duty, but perhaps it was cowardice. I was afraid to trust others with such power, afraid to risk being wrong. That wasn't cowardice, Lorne said, stepping closer. That was love. Love for your people, for life itself. Their proximity in the intimate space created an electric tension that neither could ignore. Lorne reached out to touch her face, marveling at the warmth of her skin despite her otherworldly nature. In all my years of rule, through centuries of loneliness, Seraphine whispered, I never allowed myself to feel what I feel when I look at you. And what do you feel? Lorne asked, his voice husky with emotion. Hope, she breathed. For the first time in 10,000 years, I feel hope. Their lips met in a kiss that seemed to bridge the eons between them. Seraphine's touch ignited something, primal in Lorne, while his warmth melted the ice that had formed around her heart during the long sleep. Lorne, she gasped against his mouth. I have waited so long to feel alive again. He pulled her closer, his hands tangling in her luminous hair as they surrendered to the passion that had been building since their first meeting. Her robes dissolved at her will, revealing skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. You're beautiful, he murmured, tracing the elegant lines of her body with reverent fingers. They came together with desperate hunger, two souls who had carried their burdens alone for too long. Seraphine's alien nature only heightened the intensity of their connection. Her touch sent waves of pleasure through him that transcended the merely physical, while his very human passion awakened parts of her that she had thought lost forever. As they moved together in the crystal chamber, the walls around them pulsed with sympathetic energy, responding to the depth of their emotional and physical union. Their lovemaking was both tender and fierce, a claiming that went beyond desire to something approaching spiritual communion. Afterward, as they lay entwined among the alien crystalline formations, Seraphine traced patterns on Lorne's chest with fingers that still glowed faintly with expended energy. The Shadow Collective believes power comes from domination, she said quietly, but they never understood that true power comes from connection, from the willingness to trust another with your deepest self. Lorne kissed her forehead, tasting the salt of tears he hadn't realized she'd shed. We'll face them together. Dr. Kai. Maya's voice crackled through their communicators, urgent and strained. You need to get up here now. I've decoded more of their transmissions. What's coming isn't just a recovery mission. Seraphine's body tensed against his. What does she mean? The lead ship, Maya continued. It's commanded by someone calling himself Void Admiral Crix. The database fragments I've recovered suggest he was there during your original betrayal. Seraphine sat up abruptly, her eyes blazing with starfire. Fury. Impossible. Crix died in the final battle. I saw his ship destroyed myself. Then either the records are wrong, Maya's voice replied grimly, or we're dealing with something far worse than we imagined. Lorne felt Seraphine's hand tighten in his as the weight of ancient betrayals and impossible survivals settled between them. Their moment of intimacy had awakened not just their hearts but also the attention of enemies who had waited millennia for this exact opportunity. The real battle was about to begin. The Varelian sky erupted in violence as the Shadow Collective's fleet descended through the atmosphere like metallic vultures. From their position in the reinforced command chamber, Lorne watched in grim fascination as ships of impossible design, all angular darkness and pulsing red energy, arranged themselves in attack formation above the excavation site. Defensive screens are holding, Jackson reported from his jury-rigged control station. "But they won't last long against firepower like that." Seraphine stood at the chamber's center, her form radiating power that made the air itself shimmer. The awakening of her abilities had transformed the entire tomb complex into a fortress of living crystal and flowing energy. But even she looked daunted by the force arrayed against them. "Crix always was thorough," she said, her voice carrying notes of old pain. "He's brought enough ships to glass this entire continent. The largest vessel, a predatory thing that seemed to devour light itself, descended lower than the others. Its hull bore scars that spoke of countless battles, and Lorne could feel malevolence radiating from it like heat from a forge. Seraphine Valdris, a voice boomed across all communication frequencies, distorted by harmonics that hurt to hear. "You cannot hide from me forever, my beloved empress." Seraphine's face went pale at the endearment, and Lorne felt a spike of jealousy that surprised him with its intensity. "He was my closest advisor once," she whispered, "before ambition corrupted him beyond recognition. The Nexus Core belongs to those with the will to use it properly." Crix's voice continued. "Your sentimental attachment to lesser species cost our people their empire. It will not happen again." Maya looked up from her tactical display, her face grim. "They're preparing to deploy ground forces. Whatever they're planning, they want the core intact. Then we give them a war they'll never forget," Lorne said, checking his weapons. Despite being an archaeologist, years of expeditions to dangerous worlds had made him competent with both energy weapons and projectile firearms. Seraphine turned to him, her eyes bright with desperate love and terrible resolve. "Lorne, the Nexus Core is hidden in the deepest chamber, beyond even where we were last night. To activate its defenses, someone must interface directly with its control matrix." "What kind of interface?" he asked, though her expression already told him he wouldn't. "Like the answer. The kind that requires human neural patterns to unlock, and that might very well burn out an unaugmented mind in the process." The first explosions rocked the complex as Shadow Collective assault troops began their attack. Through the crystal walls, Lorne could see figures in powered armor advancing through the ruins, their weapons cutting through stone and metal with equal ease. "I'll do it," he said without hesitation. "Lorne." "No." Seraphine grabbed his arm, her alien strength easily capable of stopping him. "I won't lose you so soon after finding you." "And I won't lose you to that madman," Lorne replied, pulling her into a fierce kiss. "Besides, you need me to activate it. That's why I'm here, isn't it? The prophecy about Earth's children?" Before she could protest further, the chamber's main entrance exploded inward. Shadow Collective soldiers poured through the breach, their weapons firing streams of energy that left molten scars on everything they touched. Seraphine's power erupted outward in a wave of crystalline force that sent the attackers flying, but more kept coming. Through the smoke and chaos, a figure in ornate dark armor stepped into the chamber. Void Admiral Crix stood 7 feet tall, his form more machine than organic. Half his face was cybernetic reconstruction, glowing with the same malevolent red as his ships, while his remaining eye burned with fanatic intensity. "Still protecting the weak, I see," he said, his voice a harmony of organic throat and mechanical synthesizer. "Some habits die hard, even after 10 millennia. "You should have stayed dead, Crix," Seraphine snarled, her power manifesting as weapons of pure energy that materialized in her hands. "Death is for those too weak to transcend it," Crix replied, his own dark energy crackling around him. "I have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of survival, waiting for this moment." The two ancient beings clashed in a display of power that shook the very foundations of the complex. Energy weapons met crystalline shields in explosions that left afterimages burned into Lorne's retinas. Using the distraction, Lorne sprinted toward the deeper chambers, Maya and Jackson covering his retreat with concentrated weapons fire. Behind him, he heard Seraphine cry out, whether in pain or fury he couldn't tell. The Nexus Core's chamber lay beyond a maze of twisting corridors that seemed to reconfigure themselves as he ran. Finally, he burst through a doorway into a vast, spherical room dominated by a structure that defied description, part machine, part living crystal. part pure mathematics made manifest. At its center waited an interface chair that looked disturbingly like a throne. "This is it," Lorne whispered to himself, approaching the alien control system. "Time to see if humanity really is special." As he settled into the chair, neural interfaces extended from its structure to make contact with his skull. The moment they connected, Lorne's consciousness exploded outward into a realm of pure information and cosmic force. And in that realm, he finally understood what the Nexus core truly was, and why the Shadow Collective would do anything to possess it. Pain beyond description coursed through Lorne's neural pathways as his consciousness merged with the Nexus core's vast intelligence. In that realm of pure thought and cosmic force, he experienced the history of the universe from perspectives no human mind was meant to comprehend. The core wasn't just a weapon. It was a lens through which reality could be focused, reshaped, and rewritten according to the wielder's will. And it was fighting him, testing whether his human psyche could withstand the temptation of godlike power. Through the neural link, he felt Seraphine's battle with Crix raging above. The Void Admiral's cybernetic enhancements had made him stronger than he'd been 10,000 years ago, and Seraphine was weakened from her long sleep. Without the core's defenses, she would eventually fall. "Use me," the core whispered in harmonics that bypassed his ears entirely. "Remake this conflict to your will. Erase Crix from existence. Rule the galaxy as it should be ruled." For a moment, Lorne felt the seductive pull of unlimited power. He could end the battle instantly, reshape the Shadow Collective to serve justice, even ensure that he and Seraphine could be together forever without the threat of enemies or death. But in that moment of temptation, he thought of Seraphine's words about connection versus domination. True power came not from the ability to impose one's will, but from the courage to trust others and work together toward common goals. "I don't want to rule anything," he said aloud, his voice echoing in the core chamber. "I just want to protect the people I care about." The Nexus core's response was surprise, then something that might have been approval. "You are indeed different from those who came before. Very well, Lorne Kai of Earth. Let us protect together." Instead of wielding the core's power as a weapon, Lorne guided it to create defenses, barriers of crystalline force that materialized around Seraphine just as Crix's energy blade would have taken her head. The entire complex transformed into a living fortress, its walls growing weapons and shields that turned the tide of battle in seconds. But the neural strain was enormous. Lorne felt his consciousness beginning to fragment under the load of interfacing with forces beyond human comprehension. In the battle chamber above, Seraphine felt the moment when Lorne's mind touched the core's vast intelligence. She also felt the moment when that connection began to burn him alive from the inside. "No!" she screamed, abandoning her fight with Crix to rush toward the deeper chambers. "Running away again?" Crix taunted, pursuing her with weapons blazing. "Some things never change." But Seraphine wasn't running. She was racing to save the man who had given her hope for the first time in 10 millennia. She burst into the core chamber to find Lorne convulsing in the interface chair, blood streaming from his nose and ears. Without hesitation, she placed her hands on the neural connectors, adding her alien consciousness to the link. The core accepted her presence eagerly. After all, she had been designed to interface with it safely. Together, their combined will directed the Nexus core's power with surgical precision. Crix's cybernetic enhancements were simply deactivated, leaving him mortal and vulnerable. The Shadow Collective fleet found their weapons offline and their ship systems refusing to respond. "Enough," Seraphine commanded through the core's communications array, her voice reaching every enemy vessel simultaneously. "Leave this place and never return or face complete annihilation." The Void Admiral's forces, stripped of their technological advantages and facing the wrath of a fully awakened Nexus core, chose the wiser path. Within hours, the last of their ships disappeared into hyperspace, but the victory came at a cost. When Seraphine finally managed to safely disconnect them from the core's interface, Lorne collapsed, his neural pathways severely damaged by the strain of channeling cosmic forces. "Will he recover?" Maya asked as they carried him to the medical bay. "I don't know," Seraphine admitted, her voice breaking. No human has ever attempted what he just did. For 3 days, Lorne lay unconscious while Seraphine maintained a constant vigil at his bedside. When he finally awakened, his first sight was her beautiful face streaked with tears of relief. "Did we win?" he asked weakly. "We won," she confirmed, taking his hand in both of hers. "But more importantly, you showed the Corps something it had never seen before. Someone willing to sacrifice ultimate power for love." As Lorne recovered over the following weeks, they faced a choice. The Corps could be used to place Seraphine back in stasis where she would be safe until the next crisis arose. Or she could remain awake, helping to guide humanity as it took its place among the galactic civilizations. "What do you want to do?" Lorne asked during one of their evening walks through the restored complex. Seraphine smiled, her hand warm in his. "I've spent 10,000 years sleeping while the galaxy turned without me. I think it's time I lived a little." They left Virelia together aboard a ship provisioned for long-range exploration. Their mission, to locate and protect other ancient sites that might contain dangerous technologies. The Nexus Corps accompanied them, now serving as a guardian rather than a weapon. "So what happens now?" Maya asked, as they prepared for their first jump to hyperspace. Lorne looked at Seraphine, seeing not the ancient mourning empress but the woman who had chosen love over duty, connection over isolation. "Now we write a new chapter," he said, as their ship launched into the star-filled darkness of space. Together, and in the depths of space where ancient secrets waited to be discovered and protected, their love story continued among the endless stars.